Welcome to We Can Wednesday. I am Unstoppable Tracy. That's unstopping your story. People and organizations, we can get in our head, whether it's an individual or a whole team. And one of the places that we communicate a lot is in meetings. We have Zoom meetings, we have phone calls, and some of us are getting back to face-to-face meetings. And we have family meetings, and we have neighborhood meetings, and we have parental advisory board meetings. Meetings are an inevitable part of every person's life, whether they're an individual, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they are a family person, or whether they're a business person. Whoever you are, it is part of your world. And sometimes we think that the efficiency of this is just automatic, and it's not. So I'm dedicating the next few weeks into facilitating those conversations in meaningful ways that are going to expand your efficacy. And so last week we talked a little bit about planning the meeting and how that planning, there's 3 major steps to get it to launch time so that you are effectively having those conversations in that meeting structure. And so the major steps in a meeting is that pre-planning, preparation, step 1. Step 2 is facilitation of the meeting. Step 3 is the conclusion of the meeting. And my aim over the next few weeks with you is not only to understand these 3 major steps in an effective meeting, but that also the follow-up to that will be exploring 4 facilitation techniques, specifically after we get the foundational 3 steps under our belt. And then lastly, we will conclude this series with planning to apply these skills. So thanks for joining me on this We Can Wednesday. And when we talked about the planning and preparation last week, we talked about defining the purpose with some specific details, and we talked about being clear on the desired outcomes of the meeting, and we also talked about identifying the participants of the meeting. The people whose input is really needed to be there. You don't want to have more than 12 or so in your meeting, and 6 could be just fine. Who are the ideal needed people? And so that's what we talked about with a lot more detail last week. And so today, going to talk about the facilitation, the second part of the 3 parts of an effective meeting. And there are, again, 3 parts to the facilitation. So more specifically, under facilitation, we're going to talk about when you're opening the meeting as the facilitator. So you want to obtain the best results ever you can, and you need to ensure that everyone is participating along the way and that no one is dominating. And all of the best opinions are brought forward. And sometimes one person's idea springboards others from folks. And so if you're not hearing from everybody, you're missing those springboard opportunities. And we all know how creative we need to be now that the world has been turned upside down. And reinvention was part of all successful people, but now it is part of a survival every day. And so we want to have those several steps involved in that ensuring everybody's heard. So today I'll give you a focus on opening the meeting with purpose. And so when you open the meeting, you are setting the stage. You're setting the stage and the duration of the whole time you're having this conversation, or for lack of a better word, this formal meeting. And it's an important step in the opening of the meeting because you don't want to skip this. Sometimes we jump into business and we skip the opening. And this is the opening where you want to be sure that you have people introduce themselves, and maybe not everybody's as familiar with each other as you think they are. There's a lot going on. People have what they're calling COVID brain. You're juggling a few things. So it's just get everybody to introduce themselves and their role today. How come they are a valuable contributor that was invited to the table for this conversation if it's a formal meeting, but that everybody knows who's who. Or what their purpose is. If it's a family meeting, we know who mom, dad, brother, sister is, but what's their role today in this family meeting? And then restate the purpose. that you communicated before everybody got there. Restate the purpose and the desired outcomes of this 30 minutes together, or this 1 hour together, or this gathering of minds together. Restate the purpose and the desired outcomes at the front, and review the agenda the way you see it happening and rolling out, and then determine a timekeeper and a note taker. And this could be in a family meeting too, but certainly in much more structured meetings in the corporate world, in your entrepreneurial team, in your volunteer not-for-profit efforts, right? You're still producing results. So there's no reason why every encounter that's a gathering of minds for a specific purpose, if you want to encourage facilitation from all, that you state that purpose, you state the agenda, and you get somebody, okay, here's a timekeeper and here's a note taker. And the note taker can be on an iPad, it can be on pen and paper, it can be on a whiteboard, or it could be something for the fridge, who knows? And then develop and review the ground rules. Like, are you going with consensus? That's pretty tough. If you choose consensus, it sounds like the nicest thing to do. Is it necessary? What's your time frame on it? You don't want to use consensus for everything. So save consensus so it has the importance it deserves for the times you need consensus. So is it consensus, or is it majority rules, or who has the breaking vote? Who has a bigger vote? No one walks away from the table, or if somebody walks away from the table, does the meeting stop until everybody can hear it? These are some examples of conversations I've had, for example, when we were merging Canadian Airlines with Air Canada. And so if there were 12 unions at the table, 5 from Air Canada, 7 from Canadian Airlines, and if somebody left the room, does that mean meetings halted? Sometimes it did, depending on what the content was. And so what are the ground rules? If it's a family meeting, what are the ground rules about cell phone use or interruptions or business calls? Maybe they're allowed. Maybe for 30 minutes you're able to block them. Who knows? So what ground rules might be important in your meetings? Take a moment to note those now. And while I'm talking. So thanks for joining me on this Weekend Wednesday. I am Unstoppable Tracy with Unstop the Story podcast. You can find Unstoppable Tracy on every platform, and you can find Unstop the Story on your favorite listening place. Thanks so much for liking and commenting below on what you found valuable and being reminded about in important meetings in your world, or the kinds of meetings you're having with your families, your volunteers, or your workplaces. Take care, everybody. Look forward to reading comments and seeing those likes. Please share, and check out Unstop the Story. Bye for now.